Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of the People Progressing podcast. And I have Mark Richards, the CEO of the Madison Group here in Denver. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first and foremost, we're going to kind of get to know Mark and what makes him tick and so forth and get you inspired today to be a better leader and grow and get some growth and progression on your leadership abilities and so forth. So, Mark, thanks for joining us today. And why don't you first tell our listeners like where you grew up, what you like to do as a kid, some of the things that kind of shaped you early on in your life?
Well, I grew up picking my toes in Poughkeepsie, as the famous line goes from I forget that movie, but I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is Hudson Valley, now part of one of the boroughs of Manhattan. It's because there's been such a movement that that area is now a lot of commuter homes for people working in and around the city. But growing up in Poughkeepsie was with a family of six. I was the oldest. My father, like many in the area, worked for IBM. IBM was building mainframe computers, and that was amazing technology at the time, long before the PC. So we grew up in a very, what I would call blue collar kind of environment. Everybody packed into a house with, as I recall, 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. And and now we have all the siblings are launched and dispersed throughout the U.S. With various career trajectories, and it's been interesting just to see how your siblings, knowing them well as children, how they progress through life. And then I went to school in upstate New York, not far from Poughkeepsie, a couple-hour drive up towards Albany, in a school called Oneonta State. Being the first from my family to go to college, that was a big deal. We were not so interested in whether your college was Ivy League. We were more interested in whether your college would accept you. And then I swam in school as a way to help pay for the cost of school, and also that turned out to be a real good anchor for me, because the discipline required to get up when it was still dark and walk from the swim house up to the pool in the snow and the cold, and swim at 6 a.m. and then swim again at 3 p.m. and try to then go to the library and study was, I was in quite a routine, as I recall, and didn't have much chance to get into trouble except for when swim season was over. And then my whole life would fall apart because of the lost discipline and just the confusion of not having that locked schedule. So I've kind of since then continued to do the same thing I did then, with athletics or training being a 2-a-day thing whenever I can fit it in, but it acts as an anchor for my time management and discipline. So that's kind of carried over since then. And now I have a family of 3 children. My oldest is Lily at 27, and my youngest is Jasper at 14. We just got back from a weekend of skiing in Vail, like we do every weekend. And after working on everyone to become skiers and swimmers, I succeeded with Jasper being a skier, and the rest of the hundreds of thousands of dollars seems to have, at least for the time being, been wasted.
No, because you can always go skiing now with your family for the rest of your life, right?
Except for my daughters have decided they don't like cold, they don't like snow, they don't like the drive, they don't like going up. That could all change with a boyfriend, but we'll see.
Yeah. So when you were in New York and growing up in New York back when you grew up, was it How different was it than it was today growing up back there? You think it's changed a lot, or is it kind of the same?
That part of the state, the Hudson Valley, Bill Poughkeepsie's changed quite a bit. I think I haven't been back in quite some time, but around Albany, and my mom still lives up there in Cooperstown, and I'm up there several times a year. That part of the state, it doesn't change. It really is kind of locked in time. It's a beautiful part of the state, very traditional. Not too much has changed. And yet, like in the Cooperstown area where my mom is, there's some real cultural significance to it, with the leather stocking tales and the Last of the Mohegans, and then the Glimmer Glass Opera. So it's really a place that doesn't change a lot.
No, I think Cooperstown's one of the neatest places I've ever been. I'm a baseball guy, but just the town itself. I tell people it's like kind of like having the Baseball Hall of Fame in Gunnison, Colorado.
Well, and I don't know if you knew this, Joe, but Cooperstown, both the hotel, the Otesaga, which is a grand hotel there, which was it was the nicest hotel in the United States when it was built in the 60s, and that hotel, as well as the Baseball Hall of Fame, as well as an incredible recreation center that they have, and probably several other things, were all put there by the grace of the Clark family, which Jane Clark is the surviving heir to, which was the co-family founders of Singer Sewing Machine Company.
It's an amazing story, and it's a beautiful place. If people haven't gone there, they should, because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, to be honest with you.
And that lake is a 9-mile long lake, and we have, my swim buddies and I have swum it for each of the last 2 summers end to end. Wow. And we probably will do it again this summer.
Wow. So did you swim all the way growing up? So when you were a kid, all the way in through high school, all the way through college, you were a swimmer?
Yeah, I really started a little later. Again, with 6 kids, there wasn't the ability to shuttle kids around like we do today. So I started when I was like 15, and had just biologically or biomechanically had the ability to really whip a whip kick for the breaststroke, and so I was a very competitive breaststroker, even starting late.
And what has that given you, that experience of being a competitive swimmer? You mentioned the discipline part of it. What has that contributed to the leadership qualities that you have now?
I'd say that whenever I am nervous and fearful of something, I have trained my tendency to jump in with both feet, to not use any avoidance or procrastination, but just to really attack it, because I use the analogy as a skier that the best snow is just beneath the obstacles where nobody goes. And so similar in your business career, if you go where nobody goes because it's got more risk, it's more intimidating, whatever, that is usually where the best snow is.
That's awesome. Now, when you graduated from college, you graduated with a history degree and education degree. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you want to do with that? Did you want to become a teacher?
Yeah. I was, college was held out as a way to, have a career afterwards. And the only career I could see that they were offering in college was teaching. And this was a teaching school predominantly. And so, yeah, I was interested in, I got a coupon book when I got out of college. It was the biggest coupon book I've ever seen, to pay back the college loans. And so I was very interested in making sure I had a way of making a living when I got out of college. And but then along the way, after graduation, I had wanted to stay in Oneonta. You know, the house was crowded, and I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with my career. And there was a auto dealership, Chevrolet dealership that was hiring. So I took on a job as a salesperson at this Country Club Chevrolet. And from like my second month, for the next 2 years, I was salesman a month every month. And then I discovered, I said, well, this is something I obviously am pretty good at. So I decided that I would focus more on sales. I had a brief stint as a Jennie Mae bond salesman in New York for Payne Weber. And it was while I was in that training program that I decided I wanted to not live in Manhattan, but in Colorado. So I came out to Colorado. I sent a bunch of resumes in advance, interviewed with a lot of different companies, from real estate to whatever, I can't even remember. Ended up with a firm that was doing financial planning, which in 1980 was a term that was brand new to me, at least, and pretty much new in the lexicon of language. And I didn't know it at the time. It wasn't until after I accepted the position that I learned that financial planning was really kind of a buzzword for life insurance. But they were a firm that was focused on the business market, which was very unusual. And we're doing buy-sell planning, estate planning, retirement planning, using defined benefit pensions, and tax planning. And so it was a fairly sophisticated operation, especially in 1980. And then from that grew the MJ Richards Company, and then the merger with the Madison Group, and where we are today, which is in a space that is very nuanced and unique, because it is a space where boutique firms like the Madison Group can be world class and outcompete institutions, banks, and wirehouses in our ability to serve the affluent population with different solutions that involve life insurance. And so that's been when we were recruiting, which we were constantly doing, new advisors, one of the things I tell them is that the good news is how bad our business model is, because it is so bad that the institutions do not want to get in or cannot, successfully enter. And that preserves this really high finance area for autonomous organizations like our own, instead of, us becoming part of a big institutional presence. So it's a bad business model because of an inherited compensation structure that serves life companies for distribution, but doesn't really serve clients or the firms that are taking it upon themselves to make sure those benefits are delivered, because there's no support for the significant expense it takes to be in the benefit delivery business.
Yeah. So you went from wanting to getting your teaching, majoring in history and teaching education, to a car salesman, to getting into the financial world, to owning your own business, and then still kind of owning your own business with your merger. Take us along that path, and what made you do those different things? Was it the excitement of learning something new? Was it the excitement of the challenge of, hey, this is, like you said before, this is a risk for me, and this is something I can do, and I want to learn more and more about it. What was it that made you do that?
Well, it was almost exclusively the clients that we work with. So, we now have over 230 clients, all of whom have wealth in excess of 50 million. So we're really working with some very exceptional people, and in terms of their success, the amount of wealth they've accumulated, and then because we're dealing with life insurance, which is really one of the more altruistic financial products, which is usually about benefiting others rather than oneself, and so therefore we're engaging with them on what their financial legacy is going to look like, whether it be their business or their family or their philanthropy, and so working with those types of people in those areas of significance in their lives is really engaging. I mean, it's just it's a real pleasure to, and then we get oftentimes these relationships become friendships, and I probably fly on private aircraft more than anybody who's never gotten close to being able to buy a private aircraft. And that's a real privilege. It's really great to have these friends who want to spend time with you outside of the business transactional nature and advisory nature that we got to know each other with.
So it's all based on relationships. I mean, you took the leap of faith, and you went from here to here to here because you saw a need or you saw an opportunity to be able to help and serve someone else. Would you say that's kind of true?
Yeah, and life insurance was the perfect platform for that because there's so much. Because of that compensation structure, many people in life insurance are in the life insurance sales business. They sell policies. They sell. I want to say market misconduct, but they will make them look as good as they can possibly look, which is not conducive to delivering a benefit. You want to have a policy, and the owner of the policy understand exactly what goes into pricing a policy and where the movement might be. So we are very conservative in our pricing, and we are over delivering, under promising, over delivering, and the typical approach is to over promise, under deliver. So it gives us a chance to kind of try to change some perceptions and some practices. We do full commission disclosure on every placement. I still think we're the only ones doing this, which is, we've been doing it for over 10 years now. Shocking to me. And even M Financial, which is a very elite professional organization that's the Madison Group is part of, and it culls its member firms. Even there, where I've spoken on their national platforms many times, it's hard to get an audience. It's hard to get on the platform and discuss commission disclosure. So just giving us a chance to do things the way we think they should be done, focus on the benefit delivery, make sure everything we do is transparent with our clients. And because the industry is kind of, so much follows compensation practices, is hobbled by its compensation practices, we, I feel, have transcended that and are really leading where it's going to eventually go one way or another. So that's been really fun. And as a result, we just this last year worked with a family where we worked with their third generation, and we have the first, second, and third generation simultaneously as clients. That's probably one of the prouder moments of 2021. So yeah, it's just been and we have a lot of repeat business. We have a lot of client referrals from the advisors that we work with, as well as the clients we work with. That's very encouraging and very affirming to our firm and how we're doing things.
I want to go back to something you said. You said you undercharge and overperform. How important is that to your success? I mean, that's something you don't hear a lot of. in the business world, right? And I think that's beautiful the way you put that. And it shows me that you guys are completely and 100% focused on your clients first, your client and what your clients are going to get from you, and in their long-term happiness and long-term futures of not only them, their families, and people that they're um, doing philanthropy with and all that kind of stuff. How important is that undercharge overperform to you and your company?
Well, that's, part of a bigger thing, which is that in a professional services business, your future, it can only be as big as the clients you serve. So we have the fortune of serving, very large clients who typically become larger. And, and so, being able to earn a seat at the table as a trusted advisor is critical. And because we are in the benefit delivery business, we know when we place a policy that we're going to be reviewing that policy every year or every 2 years or 3 years, depending upon what type of coverage and what the context is. But we're going to be reviewing that consistently with the client, their advisors, the trustees, CFO, whomever's involved. And when we do that, we know that if we go in and say, well, we assume that your cash values are going to be growing at 8%, but they're only growing at 6%. So compounded over 40 years, that means a premium we showed has to be doubled what we showed. That's not going to really encourage a lot of trust. And so we make sure that we explain everything to clients in a way that we are sure that they understand. And then we make sure we do an as-placed book that, kind of reminds everybody of the context of why it was placed, what the purpose is, why this instead of something else, and what our assumptions were. Because life insurance has an unusual, it's really compound interest, which is difficult for any of us to imagine without a calculator. So with life insurance, you have a guaranteed term policy premium, and you have a guaranteed premium on what they call no lapse guarantee policies. But 80-90% of the permanent life insurance market is assumption based. So it's just like the great analogy is or public pension funds, right? They have these unfunded liabilities, oftentimes that are not even admitted to, because they're still assuming they're going to earn 8% on their underlying investments, but they're only earning 6%. And so they have all this liability that's building up that nobody is addressing because they're afraid to reduce the assumptions because it would increase the funding level, and they don't have the money to do that. So we make sure that we start with 6, and we make sure the clients know that we have to review and make sure we're achieving 6. And if we don't achieve 6, then we show them what how we can toggle it, either add more premium, reduce the death benefit. We have several different ways of addressing it, but or increase the earnings. But we're there to solve and deliver a benefit at the end of the day. So there's a lot of things that go into that kind of work. I mean, client situations change, businesses run into hard times, families run into hard times. Things don't always get funded the way they should be to begin with. We have very little of that, thankfully, because of the market we work in, but that's one of the issues. And we just make sure that whatever we're doing, that we're like airplanes or airlines, we're trying to underestimate what we think is really going to happen, which might increase the actual premium commitments up front. But then if it's a 10-year premium plan, we might get to year 9 and say, look, we're looking at year 10, and we don't think that premium has to be paid because you're ahead of where as placed showed you would be at this, in year 10, at the end of year 10. So we can have that kind of good news, which, really is what we target. I mean, we want to, again, we like to say we're not in the life insurance sales business. We're in the benefit delivery business, and we're delivering benefits that sometimes, Joe, are over $100 million. So these are never small, impact type of programs for the clients that we serve.
Bet you
And
are.
it's cash, right? And the thing about wealthy people is they have very little cash typically on hand. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
because cash is kind of a dead asset. So when our cash comes in, that's why I say sometimes that we're the investment bankers to the estate. When our cash comes in, it's total equity. It's not encumbered. It's income tax free, and it's in the form of a fixed sum, certain. And so it becomes extremely critical to many of these large wealth situations where you have, 80% of the balance sheet is in equity, and you never know when an estate is being settled what the equity markets are going to look like, for oil and gas or for real estate or for the stock market. So, having that stabilization plays such a large role that we understand it, and we make sure that we're focused on that benefit delivery. We're 53 years old, so now we're delivering $45 million on average every year for the last several years. So we're very experienced in the far outside. When we place policies, we talk about 40-year promises, which is why our continuity planning at the Madison Group is such a focus, because we want to make sure that we continue to have a platform that is able to have ownership that is managing and advisors who are delivering these benefits far into the future.
I think it's so awesome that you keep using the term benefit delivery. And it just made me think a little bit. Don't you think every business should have that philosophy? Every business is out there to basically they were come to fruition because there was a need for that. There was a problem out there. The business sees a need to go out and help and fix those problems or whatever it might be. Don't you think every business should have that philosophy of we're in the benefit delivery business?
I hadn't thought of it, but yeah, certainly we boiled our business down to that,
Yeah.
and we're the only ones who use that kind of a mantra that I know of. I know when I first used it on a national platform, several people came up to me and said, "Boy, that's a good line."
It's a great
And I said,
line.
"Yeah, it's a good line, but you have to be able to follow through. I mean,
It's
you
not a
can't
line.
say."
It's really not a line. It's what you do.
It's what we do, and
Your
it's
purpose.
expensive. It's
Yeah.
expensive because we don't have, we have a seven-figure renewable revenue, but we're supporting 4 people with that, and we're extremely unusual in that renewable revenue feature for firms like ours. It's just because of the sheer size of the business that we have that much. But the expense of so when you take on a policy, you've taken on a 40-year on average liability for servicing that business. That means when the trust changes and you need to change a beneficiary, when the business changes and it can no longer afford the premium, or the premium structure was coming from the business and now the business is sold, or the beneficiaries change because of a divorce, or whatever happens, you're there for all of that, in addition to making sure that benefit is delivered, but also delivered to the right person at the right place. So that liability is funded with a commission that usually is paid in year 1 and then 0 from that point forward. Like I said, we have 7 figures of renewable revenue, so it's not always 0, but it's oftentimes 0. And it's only revenue that renews during the premium payment years. That's usually 10 years on average. So it's like a depleting oil and gas, property. It's always running out. And with that kind of dynamic, so when we do our commission disclosures, we show people that this is the money we're receiving, but you're going to live for another 40 years, most likely based on actuarial tables. And by the time we get out to your life expectancy, as a percentage of the death benefit, because that's what we're delivering, that's what we're managing, we're being paid, and we show them those dollars in terms of the basis points. And it's 3 to 6 basis points a year is what we're being paid. So when we do commission disclosure, we let people see what our business model is, and we tell them, here's why we do this, because you might think we're being overpaid, we think we're being underpaid, but at least we can agree on real numbers, and we can, we can at least start with the same facts.
Yeah.
And most business owners, pretty much everyone we do this with, they go, my God, how do you do that? Then they understand our business. They understand, well, we do that by new business. That's how we generate the revenues that we need to support the servicing that goes to having the corporate continuity and the service platform to answer questions within an hour when you call, or your CPA calls and wants cash values for filing a tax return and they need it right now. Those are things that we do.
It's all based on transparency and delivering a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep that first. And let me ask you this, Mark. You're the leader of your company. You have people that work for you. Do you kind of have the same leadership philosophy when you're leading those people, that as the leader of the company, the leader of the Madison Group, that you're going to deliver a benefit to the people that work for you as well?
That's a great question, Joe. And the short answer is yes, but not through me. So my focus is so client-centered that I'm not always the best leader to my internal staff because I don't oftentimes have the time or the focus in that area. So I have a partner in the business, Amy, who is my COO and soon to be president as well. And it's really her duty to do what I'm doing with our clients, with our internal clients, our staff.
And then your staff then in turn deliver the benefit to your customers or your clients.
Yeah, and anybody who has ever had any interaction with our company knows that this philosophy permeates all the way through, whether it's somebody scheduling an appointment or somebody responding to a service question, or whatever it is. Everything I'm discussing, that philosophy is embedded, instilled in every single one of our employees, and it's really quite amazing. I mean, we do get a lot of accolades. People are quite surprised at how responsive and helpful the staff members are.
That's called building a culture, and that's what you've done there, is built a culture that permeates that. And then it's also kind of it's an expectation that you've generated there as well. And I know that because when I was setting up our time for this and so forth, your personal assistant is unbelievable. She's one of the nicest people I've dealt with in a long time, and I can just tell that's how that your whole business works. And I really appreciate that. When you look at some of the other stuff that you've done, Mark, in terms of speaking and being chairman of the AALU Trust and Estate Committee, the Economic Club of Colorado, and the founding member of Starlight Children's Foundation, what propels you to do stuff like that?
Well, we at the Madison Group are good, according to my wisdom council, which is my pseudo board. Too much of our money goes to philanthropy, but we really do believe that we see it in our clients. We want to be a contributing member of the community that we belong to, and so our charity is mainly buying a table at a gala where a client is being recognized. But unfortunately, we have fortunately, we have a large client list, and our clients are community leaders. So we have, several very expensive tables a year that we are buying in order to support them and the work that they do. And, a good example is a client of ours has been a bell ringer for the Salvation Army at the holidays every year for 66 years in a row. He's in his late 90s now, still doing it. And we reached out, this is unusual, we reached out to all our clients and said, we just want you to know this is happening, and we think it's really a beautiful thing. And if you want to drop some money in the kettle, here's how you can do it online. And the Red Cross reported that was their biggest year ever in fundraising through this family. And it was just very, that's a great example of how somebody is leading the way in the community, and others like ourselves and even our clients in that case, wanted to give them a little wind to their back and contribute as well. So I think that it's really important to recognize. I have a leadership study group that I've been part of for 28 years. We formed. It's a Boulder, Denver group. It's about 15 managing partners of law firms and CEOs that have a book every 2 months and gather over a dinner and discuss it and talk about our personal updates. And so 28 years later, we've seen retirement, deaths, marriages, divorces, every aspect of life, children graduating college and getting into college, and in that group, you can see how we all kind of are in the same boat. We're kind of going through life. It's like Forrest Gump, and we are part of the zeitgeist of the times that we live in. And I think that the reason that we are so focused on making sure that we're part of this community is because I recognize in that group that even though everyone is very conscientious and really good citizens, we also are afflicted with white privilege. Every one of us has been successful, we're blessed in our lives, and it's that you have an obligation, whether you sense it or not, to help those who are less fortunate. My family was never, in a need of welfare, but the YMCA, or the Boy Scouts of America, were big parts. The Catholic Youth Organization; those were all big parts of me growing up, and those were funded by others.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the listeners to understand, especially the listeners who start businesses and are part of businesses and so forth, to understand that they do have a role to play in the communities that they're running their businesses. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and as you know, Joe, philanthropy is all over that, right? Even if
Yeah.
you don't get it, they get it,
Yeah.
and they know that that's where they're going to raise their funds from, are typically from people who have businesses. America is blessed. Colorado is blessed to have so many individuals and businesses. I think America is the number one charitable giving country in the world. Yeah. So we obviously do get it for the most part. And I have clients who tell me, look, if we have to be greeters at Walmart, we're going to give everything we can give, to our, whatever their favorite cause is. And typically in the wealth planning that we do, we talk about allocating between family, and then we separate out, next generation family, and then future generations as two different buckets, and then government as a bucket, because taxes are a form of social welfare, and then philanthropy as a bucket, and consumption as a bucket. And we say, okay, here's your buckets. I think we've covered everything. And it's all going to go to one of those buckets. Ideally, how would you like to allocate between those buckets? And not surprisingly, most of our clients don't allocate towards the government bucket because they feel like they've given quite a bit in that regard, and they would rather have more control over their social welfare. So, but they typically do have 25% going to their philanthropic bucket. And so it's a big chunk. Yeah. Rarely do we see wealth in excess of needs and wants, which is the population we serve, where there isn't a allocation to philanthropy.
Now, let's get into kind of you and what you do now. I know you still do. You've done some triathlons and you still ski, you still bike, you still do all those kind of things. What's your favorite thing to do?
Well, in the wintertime on weekends, ski.
Ski.
Yeah, I just think that as the Canadians say, skiing is the most fun you can have with your pants on. It's a wonderful sport that the magic of snow and just the sheer visceral feeling of flying down a slope and going through trees or over in back bowls, etc., is just incredible. So I love that. My number one training mechanism is swimming, and I love the water as much as I love the snow. The feeling of the water. Water is 800 times denser than air, so figuring out how to get through water as fast as possible is a lifelong pursuit, just like coasting on snow. I have lots of friends who are really avid cyclists, and I have in the past been a super avid cyclist. I'm not as avid a cyclist as I was, but now I train on the bike just to go off on these trips with my friends and do these rides. So most of it is transferred from the cardio fitness of swimming, but I have to spend enough time on the bike to keep my handling skills there. And yeah, I'm 66 years old, so it's unusual to be. I have a wearable ring and a wearable watch, and they're more often telling me to take a rest than they are to do some physical activity. So they're my resting heart rate is 36 beats per minute. So I like to stay fit. I feel like your fitness is your battery, and your battery is how you how you show up in life. And I recognize that lots of things can happen that can drain your battery, but the one thing you can do to charge your battery is to take charge of your physical activity and your nutrition and your sleep. And so I try to really pay attention to those.
You amaze me. The more we talk, the more I just get amazed by you, because I see a person who's not afraid to take a risk, who loves challenges, who's pushing themselves to different limits in different things all the time. What makes you tick, Mark? I mean, what makes you do those things? To have the zest for life that you do, even at 66 now, you're not slowing down. You're speeding up. You're still skiing every weekend and swimming and doing all these things. What gives you that zest for life? What do you think it is?
Well, first of all, it's a fact that I am speeding up. My swim times, I've done a race for 14 years from Hermosa Beach to Manhattan Beach. My times have gotten faster over that period. The skiing, I used to ski 600,000-700,000 vertical feet a season. Now over 1 million every season, and my day, each day is over 30,000. It used to be 20,000. So I don't know why, but my it has increased. In fact, my concierge doctor asked me recently if I was taking anabolic steroids. And I told him, I said, I would hope that you would know if I were taking anabolic steroids. I said, but I'm not. And he said, well, the reason I ask is your testosterone is at 1500, and that's where it maxes out on our reading. And so if you're not taking anything, then I think we should have another test done for concern over a tumor, because I guess that would kick up the testosterone levels. And we did that, and that test came out at like 1300. And but in the meantime, he had talked to an endocrinologist who said, if you've been doing this all your life and it's always been high, then there's nothing to worry about, because even though it's outlier, it's not unheard of. And you get this virtuous circle where your muscle mass is allowing you to generate HGH, and your HGH is allowing you to build muscle mass. And as long as you can keep that virtuous circle, rolling, then that's great. So I think that what makes me tick is a friend on Strava once shot me a quick message, who's chasing you, just looking at what my activities were. And I think that I always feel that I am being chased a bit. So I think a little bit of what makes me tick is that. And also I've got a 14-year-old boy, and these kids are just darn expensive. So, just being able to, make sure that we're able to have the family do the things that they love to do and have the experiences that they want to have, and the education and preparation for life. All of that is plenty, as well as everything we're trying to do here to make sure that this business, is going for the next 40 years. Those are big ambitions, and you just can't sit and dream. You gotta do something.
That's awesome. And it's, again, when I hear you talk, it's all kind of based on, you talked about doing some of the stuff. You have a 14-year-old son, you want to be able to do for him and do things with him and provide for him and do all these things. You want to present benefits to your clients all the time. That's the number one goal of your thing, of your business and so forth. So it's all about serving others and being there for others. And that kind of keeps you going too. It keeps you going to get in better shape and keep grinding it out and doing the things that you do. You just said you swam a 9-mile lake up in Cooperstown as well. I've been there. It's a beautiful lake, but I don't know if I could take a boat 9 miles right now. And for you to be able to swim it is pretty amazing. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, Mark, and we'll kind of wrap this up. I wrote a book. It's called The 3 Ps, Finding Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion. And I ask all my guests these 3 questions. What's your purpose in life?
That's a big question. So I have a mantra that I use, Joe, and I just remind myself of it in different situations to know how I'm going to show up. And it's actually recently I had actually added 2 letters to it. Let me see if I can quickly find that. But it was SWATS, which was student, warrior, athlete, teacher, servant. And so I think my purpose is to show up in the mode that is going to be of the greatest benefit to those who I'm serving, whether it be my family or my clients or my employees, in a way that's as helpful as it could possibly be. And I actually recently worked on that and added, it made it SALT. So SAWSALT, student, athlete, warrior, servant, leader, teacher. Servant, yeah, so I have that, yes, servant, athlete, leader, teacher. So I'm not sure why I have A there twice. I'm sure there's a reason. Anyway, the point is that, the point is that I think if you're going to, your purpose kind of changes depending upon the context that you're in, or at least mine, at least the way I look at it. So I look at it, my purpose as being, my grand purpose as being, we never take anything out of this life with us. So leaving behind as much as possible, and doing that by having my modality meet the challenge that I'm facing.
And again, student, warrior, athlete, teacher, servant, leader. And
yep.
Again, it's all about serving others.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I go back to delivering a benefit. That's what you're always trying to do, is deliver a benefit to no matter who you're with, whether it's someone working for you, whether it's a client, whether it's your family, whether it's a friend, whether it's that peer group that you meet with. It's always showing up and delivering benefit to them, not you, but them. And that's
as you know, Joe, as you progress in life, you recognize the enormous talent and capability within each of us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you learn, I think, to be better at tapping into that rather than tapping into just what you have to offer.
Beautiful. Okay, so the next one then is I'm going to jump over to passion. So, what's your passion in life? And it could be the biking, the swimming, those kind of things, or whatever your passion is that you love to do, because you live your passion all the time. You're doing stuff that you just love to do.
Yeah, I love learning the stories of people. I love reading, and I love being doing things that scare me, whether it be on snow or in water, that I don't necessarily believe I can do, and then preparing so that I can get over that. And as a father and as a husband, I love seeing my children develop as well. I have a daughter who's 27 who will be entering the business this month. She's starting her training program. That's something I never saw coming, and is deeply gratifying. So I'd say my passion is people and living life to the fullest, which is both exercising my physical body and my mind.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Again, it's all about kind of serving people. Your passion is, and I always say that purpose equals passion, and passion equals purpose in most of our lives. And what holds it together is the perspective that we have on life. What is the main perspective, or some of the perspectives that you have on life that kind of hold your purpose and passion together? You mentioned
Well,
philanthropy.
yeah, we are. It's an interesting business because we are constantly engaged in conversations about the end of life. So much so that we even have our COO, President Amy, is an end of life doula, and we're going to start incorporating that into our services. So the only immortality is the legacy that you leave behind, which the financial legacy is the smallest part of. It's the human legacy that really is the torch that we all have that we pass. And so that's the perspective that I have. It's a perspective that I am faced with every single day, that life is not forever. In fact, in geological time, it's barely a blink of an eye. And so if you spend that getting too wrapped up in yourself, then at the end of the day, you're going to kind of realize that you were snookered, that that had very little to do in terms of any kind of permanence or significance. And so you really do need to look to others, and that's the perspective.
That's awesome. What a beautiful way to end this. Very inspiring. You've inspired me today, and that's why I do this podcast, because hearing different perspectives like this from successful people and what makes them tick and what makes them grow and keep growing. The first thing you said in your acronym was student, which means you mentioned you're 66, but the first thing you said is you're still a student. And I just love that. The clock never runs out on growth and progression, and you help people do that today. And I truly appreciate you coming on, Mark. We'll get this out, and it will inspire others to maybe go out and start swimming or skiing. I just took up skiing last year.
Wow.
Yeah, I grew up here. I'd skied 3 times in my life. Was horrible at it. Hadn't skied in 25 years. And my sister-in-law got me a ski lesson for a day, and I can't stop doing it. I was up in Vail 2 Sundays ago, and I'm not very good at it, but it's just like what you said. I love going down the slope or getting on top and seeing the view and then going down the slope, especially when you're kind of by yourself and it's one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I can't stop doing it now. And so I'm 56, so you can start late and kind of learn how to do it, but it's been a lot of fun, and you're inspiring me to do more. So
It's so great to hear. Yeah, I certainly get it too. I think that, yeah, we shouldn't ever tell ourselves, or we should always check whenever we tell ourselves that I'm too old for that, because that's how you age, is when it's really self-inflicted aging, when you start telling yourself that you can't do something because of a number. You can do pretty much anything you want, and you really can't live without growing. I mean, that's biologically, that is, what life is.
Yeah. And I love the same thing when you said learning the stories of people. It intrigues me so much. That's why I do this podcast. And
yeah, I know, Joe, everybody should have in my opinion, because we do a project with our clients where we'll spend 3-4 3-hour sessions with interviews and tapes, and create a narrative. And everybody, it would be wonderful if everybody had their narrative, their life narrative, in a chip. And when you met somebody and you got to know them well enough that you really wanted to get to know them at a deeper level, they would hand you the chip, and you would, understand how they grew up, and where they were in their family and all of that. And it would be because right now, even with our closest friends, we miss out on so much of what makes them who they are. We don't really get that chance. But well, and so I would love to reverse the favor, Joe, at some point, and hear more about your story. And we look forward to working with you with your executive group as well. So
I appreciate that, and I'll be in touch. But I just want to thank you again for coming on. We'll get this out this week, and it will inspire many people like you do on a daily basis. So I thank you, Mark, for coming on.
Thank you, Joe.
And I want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of the People Progressing podcast with Mark Richards from the Madison Group. What a great day! What a great inspirational man Mark is, and I can't wait to get to next week with our next guest. But let's enjoy this one this week and be inspired. So keep growing, keep progressing, and we'll talk to you soon.